Mm, smells good. Ooh, just a little bit too hot. It's right there. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me. Probably be ready as soon as I finish talking. As soon as it kills my throat. Did I playing Diablo 3? You ever I don't know how to start this conversation. You ever see someone who acts as though they can't wait for you to look at something because they can't wait for you to bash it? They, I know this sounds strange, but you've probably encountered what I'm talking about. Shared enthusiasm makes sense. If I like something, I want to share it with you because I am enthusing about it. I want you to also be enthused about it. That's logical, right? That's pretty basic. If you have a nice meal or a good drink, or there's a show you like, or there's a game you like, hey, check this out because you want the other person to like it. And of course, that could lead to emotional vulnerability because sometimes the person doesn't like the thing you like, and there's all kinds of stuff that can come from that, and you get the idea. Hmm. But shared dislike doesn't really make sense to me. Like, there's some, I'll use games specifically. There's some games I've covered which I consider to be drag. In fact, we actually have a special tag on the review site, on the review page on the website. It's called trash. Or actually, no, excuse me, it's called garbage. It's called garbage for a reason. I've never felt the urge to be like, hey, check this out. It's garbage. Like, in general, what I try to do, my perspective, and I don't know if this is the same thing, is I try to explain exactly how and why it's garbage rather than just saying it's junk. It's like, oh my god, garbage. Like someone will come to me and say, hey, should I play Wolfenstein Youngblood? And my answer is no, no, and here's why. Dot dot dot. Right? That's my approach. But one of the weirdly recurring things I have seen in my career, I guess, doing this for over a decade at this point, is I'll get a lot of people who will say something along the lines of, well, I can't wait until you cover such and such so you can tear it to shreds, or I can't wait till you see blah 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 because it's awful, and so forth and so on. It's just been a thing, right? I'm not going to name any examples, doesn't matter, but it's something I've been hearing, and you probably can guess where I'm going with this. Several times over the last week, it's about last Thursday actually, I keep getting these kind of comments about Diablo 3. I've heard so many people on stream and in the YouTube comments both, not only bashing D3, which is understandable, but saying they can't wait for me to review D3 because of how much I'm going to tear at a new one. If that's what you're expecting, do me a favor and do not actually watch the stream, because that's not what's going to happen. I'm going to be what I always am towards every game I review ever, whatever some people think on YouTube, and I am going to try and approach it as fair and as evenly as I possibly can. In fact, I'm sure those of you who dislike D3 will be happy to know we're actually going to be starting with, I think, like 6 negatives before we even hit go, before we even hit play on the game. Just 6 negatives, bam, right out of the box. So if that makes you happy, then that's awesome. But if you are wanting to watch me just chip or shred a game that you hate, this is not the stream for that. I guess that's part of the thing, though, isn't it? Because it's not just shared negativity or whatever the opposite of shared, whatever the inverse of shared enthusiasm is. It's wanting someone to enumerate, right? Like, I know I'm not the only one who is a target of that. I've seen several people look at, reviewers or analysts or whatever and say, hey, please cover this terrible work so I can know exactly why it sucks so badly, right? And stuff like that. And that makes sense. That's logical. And Lord knows that my review system is very much designed to pick apart the individual points that are both good and bad. And I guarantee you we will find plenty of negatives going through D3, so maybe that's the benefit? I don't know. But I know if I don't ask a question, no one's going to comment on this video. So I'm going to ask the obvious question. It's not some random question about pineapple, because we know pineapple is one of the best fruits. That's not the question here. The question here is that your mentality? Or I guess, why do you have that mentality if you do? Is it because you want like someone else's perspective on it? Is it because you want to check your own thoughts on the matter? Is it because you want someone to enumerate things that you yourself have problems with but you can't quite put words to? Is it something I haven't even thought of because I'm dumb? Like, there's all kinds of options here, and I'm curious of your thoughts, as I always am. Either way, we're going to be playing D3 today. I'm looking forward to it, especially after D2. But before we go any further, I want to qualify that statement, because you're probably thinking, he's speaking ill of D2. Yes, I am. Hear me out for a second. Those of you who know me know that I've played D2 a lot. I was able to discuss the specifics of loot generation in D2. I know the game that well. So I've played it a lot, and I've dug into the code several times. Oh, and I'm now officially late for stream. So that's cool. So why would I play a game that much if I'm just like, ugh, about it? Is it a game that didn't age well? No. Is it a game that my tastes have moved on from? No. Act 1 and Act 2 were still legit. And if we chopped off the review after Act 2, D2 would be a massive net positive on both axes. But then there's Act 3, which was actually worse than I remembered. And Act 4 and Act 5 wasn't actually that bad, but there were still some stumbling blocks there. And you're probably thinking, well, then what changed? If it was always this bad, what was the difference? And I can actually tell you the exact thing. Because I never played D2 solo. This is one of those Dark Souls kind of situations, for those of you familiar with how the mechanics of AI and attack, targeting, all that fun stuff work in Dark Souls. Because you could tell that the bosses and monsters just operate differently when you're in co-op. When you have another target, the bosses operate differently. So even though Bale, for example, was still a corpse bomb scenario, it was much less frustrating. Because it wasn't rush in, get 2 hits, die. Because occasionally he'll target the other one, or occasionally he'll warp around. And we could do it infinitely, because we could use each other's portals. And there's other little neat details like that, but the point is, between how the targeting works, how the damage scaling works, how the loot generation works, and the fact that we could literally corpse bomb people by using each other's town portals so we never run out of town portals, all of these mean that every time we'd run into one of those barriers, one of those stat blocks, those stat walls in D2, we could just push through it together in a relatively short period of time. Solo, those just become frustration fests. That's the big thing right there. Like, we all know the Darial fight sucks, right? But I never realized how many other fights suck in that game until I had to do them by myself. Yes, I know the fact that I was playing arguably the worst spec in the game probably contributes to that. Although, in my defense, I was doing that for a very good reason. It is a review, after all. And we were able to do it, eventually, even as the worst spec in the game. I don't actually know if it's the worst. It's just not very fun. Not a very fun spec. But even then, we were still able to pull it off. It's just... God, it was aggravating. And we will not run into problems like that in D3. So I'm hoping at least a couple of you are looking forward to this in a positive light, instead of looking forward to me shredding this game. For those of you who are, cool. For those of you who are not, well, that's also cool. As always, there's no judgment here. Okay, I'm going to shut up now and actually start the stream. I hope to see y'all on the other side.